Hey, I'm Coach Mickey, and I'm so glad that you've joined us. And if this is your first time joining us, come on in and make yourself comfortable. And for those of you that join us on a regular basis, I'm so glad that you do. And thank you so much for all your comments, your questions, and your suggestions for many of my guests. And I want to thank you personally for always reaching out to my guests. For those that resonate with you and that you've learned something from, or you have more questions, I highly, highly recommend that you reach out to each and every one of them because they always have something to offer. And today is going to be really fun. It's always fun here anyway, right? But today's going to be more fun because I had an opportunity to work with this wonderful individual. She's amazing. I was at one of her events and she's got so much to offer. She's got a lot of charisma, a lot of enthusiasm, and a plethora of information that is going to help you in so many ways. So I'm going to just jump right in and introduce you to Chef Katrina, but also Katrina, she used to be a chef at Disney World, and she has now moved on and created Create Her. She has helped women so many times with their business, and she's got so much more to offer. And I'm going to let her just jump right in and share that information. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you're with me today, Katrina. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. And I'm excited to be on your podcast episode and just be here and talking with your audience because I know, like, when we talk about building businesses and growing as a human being, there's so much to talk about. So I'm excited to be here and have this amazing conversation with you. So thank you for the invite.
Yes, no, my pleasure. I was looking forward to having you on because when I had an opportunity to work with you in the past, you brought in a collaboration of extraordinary people and extraordinary women to
Oh,
be able to help so many others. And I was really excited to have you here so you could share your information in regards to who you are and what you do to offer to help.
yeah. First off, for those of you who are listening, so I had Coach Mickey on my a summit. I was doing a summit around growth strategies from a female point of view and how they're challenging the norm and showing up differently in areas that we typically think of are male dominant or feel a little like not our place to play. And when I was introduced to Coach Mickey and she's like, I'm a football coach, I was like, shut the front door. I've got to talk to her. Like, what was that like? Like, I was the kid in the candy store that was like, tell me more who you are. I was like, I wanted to be her biggest raving fan. Okay. So now I am. So now, I geeked out over her. I was super excited for that conversation, the training she did, the insight she has. If you've been listening to her, she's just phenomenal. So yes, so honored to be here. My journey, for those that don't know, so Coach Mickey referred to me as chef. I get a question all the time, are you still a chef? The answer is unfortunately no. I had a great experience. I spent 13 years at Walt Disney World in the world of the kitchen. I learned everything. I did everything from fine dining to family service to quick service. There was nothing off the table in my world. And then probably around year 10 of 13, I kind of looked around and goes, is this really what I want to do with my life? Like, I love cooking. I love the experience I'm getting. I'm learning so much in this environment. But is this like my passion? And so I started diving into the world of digital marketing. So how many of you like remember back in the day, 2008, 2006, Facebook, way back when it asked just like, what do you have to say today? And I started looking at that. I said, hey, this world of digital marketing is going to be awesome. I don't want to be here personally, but I like it for a business purpose. Like I can see how it becomes an advertising piece. So yeah, that's the start of my journey was getting into the digital marketing. I went from full-time to part-time to no time as a chef. I owned a restaurant for 9 glorious months. This is how I really knew I didn't want to be a chef after this. I was like, nope, this isn't what I want to do every day. But I learned a lot, and one of the things I fell in love with was all the creative ways businesses get started, and a lot of the things we don't know as business owners because maybe we're coming from an employee background. And that kind of, when you're an employee mindset going into an entrepreneurial mindset, it takes something. You know that, Chuck. You know that, coach. It takes, you talk about your football players, they got to go through some mind stuff to get to where they're going to get that winner mentality.
Well, it's a big shift. It's a big shift going from working in the corporate world to be going, okay, I've had all this time and energy doing something for sometimes many, many years. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you're going to do your passion. And then you're like, where do I even start? What do I even do? How do I even do this? And this is where you come into play because this is where you start to be able to take these people with that new mindset and guide them through to where they need to go to get to where they want to go or to be.
Yeah, because it's a different path, right? You're going to go from an employee to an entrepreneur. There's a lot of mind shift you have to do because you typically, when we start a business, we are still in the employee owner mindset. I'm working on my business. I'm trading hours for dollars. We get really stuck in that piece. So to transition from that, it's letting go. So a lot of us women, because I talk specifically with women in business now, have a perfectionist, and we have my perfectionists out in the audience. Anybody? Anybody? I can't let it go. Nobody can do it better than me. Anybody? Anybody? Ever had that thought, right? Um, if I don't do this, everything's gonna fall apart, kind of a thing. I've got to balance everything. I'm superwoman. I hear that all. And then I get on the flip side of that, imposter syndrome. I can't keep up with everything. I'm exhausted. I'm burned out. So you've got like these two sides of this conversation that you're at as a business owner. So one of the things, just to be totally transparent, and I know Coach Mickey knows this, am I allowed to be explicit on your podcast or is this PG rated?
No, you can say whatever you want.
Are
You're
you
you're good.
sure?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna forewarn you, ladies and gentlemen. I might use some language you might find slightly offensive, and I'm just precursing this for you because I don't know where you're at in your life. So, in this world of business development, as I was working with, because I worked almost 15 years exclusively with men and women. I did both. I worked with the men in building businesses and designing marketing plans. I worked with females. I did it all. Women, you fascinated me because everything that we were taught, you struggled with. And that was my first tip off. You struggled with time management because the way we were taught to have a 5 a.m. morning, have a miracle morning, have this rigid structure of something you're supposed to do every single day. I saw women struggle with this and I didn't know why we were struggling. To be honest, I was struggling with it too. I didn't know why I was struggling. Um, and that was my first tip off about 10 years ago that something was off in our world of business education for women. And so I continued teaching, continued coaching, continued doing my thing. And about 3 years ago, I hired so 3 years ago, I burned out. I had a mentor or coach I was talking to. I left that conversation for my next growth strategy, exhausted spiritually, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, everything. Like I was done. I was ready to just throw in the towel and just go back to having a job at that point. But then I hired a business muse. And I don't know what a business muse is, still don't know to this day, but she was amazing, but she's not a business muse anymore. So I don't know how to help you with that one. Um, and she asked me a question that no guy would ever dare ask me, right? And so she asked me this question, coach. She's like, well, you want to build a business, you want to be healthy, you want a relationship, you want to do all these things. And she goes, well, have you consulted your pussy? And I think I actually looked down. I might have looked down. I was like, what the heck does that have to do with anything? Like, that's not strategy. That's a stupid question. I think I was offended. I was a little annoyed by it. And at the same time, I was really curious. Coach, why is she asking me about down there? Right? Like, what a bizarre question to ask somebody in business. Shockingly, she was right on track though. So I was curious because when you're offended by something or that somebody says, there's a mirror reflected at you, right? So if somebody says something that pisses you off, it's either something you're dealing with yourself, like you're holding on to, it's a reflection. So knowing all this, I pulled the thread. I was like, all right, what does it mean to be a woman? Mind you, I'm 46 years old, 45 years old at the time. And I'm like, what does it mean to be a woman? This was before that question was asked, by the way, out there in the world, like, what is it to be a woman? And so I started diving into this. And I came across a book called Pussy, the Reclamation. That was a book that talked about so this woman had actually built a school in New York called the School of Womanly Arts, and she talked about the female body. And she talked about how we have emotional ranges and that we need she called it swamping, where we need a day to go hang out with our girlfriends and beat the crap out of something, have a bitch, moan, and complain session just to get it all out. And then you go back into your day and you're much healthier and all of that. It was a fabulous book. And I was like, okay, this is the start of a business book. I actually recommend it to all my business women to read. It's really bizarre book you think, but it's fabulous. The next book I read was called In the Flow, and that's by Lisa Vetti. So it's In the Flow, and we'll make sure the links are down here in the show notes for this. And it was the first time I'd ever heard about the female infradian rhythm. We know about the circadian rhythm, but we don't know about the infradian rhythm. Well, the infradian rhythm is what we experience as women. You know how much research has gone into that?
Well, first of all, let's clarify what that is because I'd like to know. So I'm sitting here with a deer in headlights going, well, what is that? So I'm
An
going to be the
infradian
first to
rhythm.
ask, what is it?
I didn't know it. I was pissed once I found out, to be honest. I wish somebody had taught me this when I was 12 years old. So your infradian rhythm for female is what we call our menstrual cycle. But we just think it's us bleeding. Coach, how much education have you had around your female cycle besides the fact that you bleed every month? That's pretty much about it,
Yeah, true.
right?
Yeah.
No, there's not much. So what was interesting as I was reading this book is that our cycle is actually broken into 4 phases as women. So our thinking, our eating, our sleeping is all attached to our emotions and our hormones. Who knew, right? So as in our Freudian rhythm, so for women, your first phase is actually called your follicular phase. Now, inside your body, it's preparing for life, right? That's what your uterus is doing. Well, up here in your head, you are actually high creativity, high cognitive thinking, and you're able to really look big picture at things that are going on in your life. Have you ever felt like you're a mad genius at moments in your month? When you're like, oh, I'm like, everything's clear. You're getting all these downloads and you're like, this, like, I can plan my business. I can plan my finances. Like, you just feel really good. Do you ever experience that, coach?
Yeah, yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's like, and I'm on today. It's like you feel unstoppable. I do. I know exactly that mindset. It's just like it surprises you. Like, where did that come from? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I get you.
So beginning of the cycle it lasts usually 7 to 10 days, ladies. It's 7. So if you ever find yourself not sleeping during those 7 to 10 days because your brain is really actively working, that's normal. It's actually not a dysfunction of being a female. It's actually part of your creative process. When you get out of your follicular phase and you phase into your ovulatory phase, which we all think, oh my God, I'm going to have a baby, everything else, inside your body, you get highly crystal clear on your communication. You want to do video marketing? Do it during that phase. You want to close more sales in your business? Do it during that phase. Why? Because you'll actually do, and it's proven scientifically, you will make more revenue and do better in business if you use those 3 to 5 days to ask for a raise, talk to your spouse, be in conversations. You are super crystal clear in your communication.
Wow.
That's cray,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
Then we get into what we call our luteal phase. So at this point, our body's starting to shed, right? So we're starting to cleanse our cycle. So we're going through this process. So what happens when we want to like settle down? We take care of our tasks. Productivity goes up. We're doing the menial tasks that need to get done. You find yourself, mommy, probably doing laundry. All of a sudden, the house needs to be dusted. This editing needs to get done. You use this as a low functionality time, but you get a lot of loose ends done, right? All of a sudden things need to get completed off your calendar. Then the one thing that we all skip as women is our menstrual phase. So that phase there, that 3 to 5 days, take the time off to rest. Your business doesn't suffer. You'll actually get more clarity. And here's a funny thing about that time period. For women, this is why we are such geniuses, by the way, and men, you're geniuses too, but I will tell you why women's brains work better than yours do. Don't be insulted, but it's scientific fact. During our menstrual phase, the female brain, coach, actually creates more neuron connectivity between left and right brain than any other time of our month.
Wow.
And we're the only ones out of the male female species that has that kind of connectivity running at that high level every single month. Because you always ask yourself, have you ever had that conversation? Why do women develop or girls develop faster than men? Emotionally, everything else. Like you ever see like women tend to like once they start, they're like, why do you feel like you're more grown up than the guy over here?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm assuming it's because of what you're saying,
Every
the
single
neurological.
month, a woman's brain is actually building between the left and right brain at a faster pace than our male counterpart. Isn't that cray cray?
And well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, because I mean, especially for me, because I work with all guys. I mean, I work with all boys, and and some of them are a little bit more evolved emotionally than some of the other ones. And I'm looking at some of that are the same, but then I see some of the other girls come out, and it's like it's just you can definitely see it. I mean, I can see it because I'm at the high school level. So I mean,
Right.
you really want to delve into it, you can see it, especially
Oh yeah.
going from ninth to seniors. But yeah, no, that would make sense that if, especially if it's a neurological path that's being fired. And isn't it, I mean, don't they say that your brain doesn't fully develop until you're like 24, 25 anyway? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that, yeah.
Yeah, 24, and I think up to age 27 is full functional development. So there's so many neuro pathways that are getting created, that are being designed. And I just, as I dove into this and I sit with this conversation more and more as I talk to women, I'm like, this is really starting to make sense at a very intuitive level. Yet we're not having this conversation because it's not built into the fabric of life, or even what we deal with as women. So not only does it apply to business, but it applies just to our day-to-day parenting, taking care of ourselves. All of it plays into it. It's really interesting.
Well, I think also it hasn't been brought to light because nobody wants to talk about it. I mean, the information that you're bringing, I mean, definitely has substance and it makes sense. But a lot of people are not going to come out and say, "Oh, yeah, by the way, you're a genius today because you're on your cycle." Oh, they're not going. One, they're either not going to admit it, or two, they're going to be like, "What?" you know.
And I think that's interesting because that does come up in the book. It's like, do you have to tell people when your cycle is? And I say, no, you don't. And it's honestly, it's interesting. What I find is that once you're aware as a woman how your cycle starts to affect your business, and even if you're in a career and what you're kind of doing, and once you start becoming aware of it, you start learning how to balance it, right? So when you are needing to be critical or high thinking, you might say, you know what, I'll work on that project next week because I know that's going to be a good time for me to work on it. Or instead of working on that high level, I'll work on like you start to, even for myself in my business, it's crazy. When I created the planner, the high creativity, like I actually use this, right? So when I was designing our planner for women, I used that like follicular phase. I reached out with everybody. We started designing it. I'm etching it on paper because I have no idea how to draw on a computer to save my life. So I've got pen and paper. I'm coloring things in and trying to get it, sending it over to our designer. Then I got into my communication phase. I let all my community know, all my friends knows. I started kind of, saying, hey, can somebody help me like finance this first planner? What can we do for that? Getting a lot of communication done. And then as I cycled down in my piece, I was like doing like the little details with my editing guy, right? I was like, Mary, I need this done. I need this done, and kind of looking at it. And then I rest and the project was complete. Like it had gone through all the phases with me, so that the next month that I was looking out for the printer, because the experience of using my energy cycle allowed for that whole process to get completed in 30 days. Where if I had started at any other time period, it would have taken a project even longer to go through. So it's interesting when I started internalizing it for myself, like this is the best time. Even scheduling this podcast with you, to be honest, when you told me we weren't meeting last week, I was like, oh, thank God. Because it wasn't the right time for me to communicate. And I was hoping, we said, I was like, yay. I always try to plan my podcast interviews around times when I'm better at communicating.
Well, that makes sense. And the thing too is, I mean, if you are aware of this and you can use it, like you said, in your business or any other things in your life, I mean, it's kind of like having a planner that's already in front of you. Like you said, I know this is a good time for me. This is when I'm going to be, with the right mindset. This is where I'm going to be fit. Yeah. No, that's brilliant. It really is, Katrina. That is brilliant.
And it took something like ladies and the gentlemen that are listening, that when you talked about a coach, we're getting this information. So figure this, kind of play with this in your head. Okay. Noodle this is what I call it. It was only 50 years ago that women could open a business or open a bank account without their husband's signature. So 50 years, right? I was just talking to a lady just before this in the 1970s or 1960s, she was getting supplemented, well, she says, what, 20 years ago, she was in a project that said women in positions that are not what we're usually in. And she was getting supplemented by the government for her paycheck. This was only 20 years ago, by the way. 20 years ago, this was happening. That the government was subsidizing businesses to hire women at positions that typically did not have women in it. Right? You have to understand that as a female, the research on our body is still relatively new. Understanding how our brains think is relatively new. Why? Because for the first time, we have women that are doctors, researchers in broadcasting, in these positions. Like, it's not your typical place that we're in. So now we're starting to ask questions about what our body is doing. And yes, we're more a complex creature, but we're just cracking the door, honestly, for what I'm sharing with you. I can only see it being more evolved and developed as we go.
And I'm glad. I really am because, like you said, there are so many women that have broken glass ceilings or they have stepped out of their comfort zone to do something, and out of the norm. And we've had to do that with support either on our own, and just take that chance and do it, or we've had surrounded ourselves with other people that are going to lift us up to go to be our biggest, cheer us on. They're going to be our biggest fans. But having this research now that's saying, no, this, but you know what? First of all, I'm going to back up. I kind of find it sad that we have to prove it scientifically that we can do the same job. Now, I'm not going to talk about strength or anything like that, but I'm talking about mentally, to be able to fit into a position, regardless of what it is, and being able to mentally do that and succeed. I just think that to have to prove it, I don't know, that's still kind of is
It
abrasive
is.
to me.
It's still part of this. You got to prove that you deserve a seat at the table. What's interesting, ladies, is that we already have the seat. We don't own it yet. Like, we're not saying this is ours yet. It's just going to take time. Like I said, 50 years is nothing. It's like 5 days old, and really in the long scheme of things. So we have a lot of growth. We have a lot of change. But I think starting this conversation, even being here with you on this, coach, is the start of it, right? You
Yeah,
want to hear something funny? I think you'll appreciate.
sure.
It's not quite funny. So, back in 2019, there was the FIMA World Cup for women's soccer, right? So US was over there playing in the World Cup in France, and I just happened to be over there at the time with my sister who wanted to go watch it. So we got to watch a lot of the US games. And if you were kind of listening at the time, the women's US team was kicking butt and taking names over there, right? They were dominating the field. Interesting little fact I later found out. They had actually read the book In the Flow and were practicing their schedule around the cycles of their team. So they weren't pushing when they shouldn't push, and giving each other and taking that time to rest. So in the world of female sports, this was the first time I heard of them creating a practice schedule around a female's infradian rhythm. Now, the belief is, ladies, once you all start cycling together, everybody cycles together. I had that thought for a moment, but I work with all women. I actually have my business partner is also my roommate. We are not on the same schedule ever. We are just enough apart that we can bounce things off of each other. We were for a moment when we first started this conversation, but then life happens and things start to shift, right? So it's interesting as they tell us that that we'd all cycle at the same time. I've yet to find that to be true in anything that I've done as I talk to these. Even in the women I coach, they don't get on the same cycle as me. Like, that's just silly. They cycle according to their environment, which is another interesting piece behind this, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, this has been very informative, and I'm really excited because I think this is going to help a lot of people. But before we go any further, what I do want to mention is if you are looking to connect with Katrina, please, you will find the link down below if you're watching here on my YouTube channel. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can find it click on her name. That'll drive you right to her website, and you can reach out to her, connect with her, work with her. And I highly recommend that if you are finding value in this, which I am, is connect with her and move forward, especially if you are stuck in your business and now you've got all the answers to why, and to be a help get past that point that you need to move forward.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times when we get stuck as women is that we're burnt out because we're still trying to follow a traditional model that says, hey, you have to do this every single day. Hey, you've got to do this. And that's exhausting for us. So what I love to work with women is, okay, what is your flow? What is your ebb and flow? Because it's different for all of us. What season of life are you in? Do you have young kids? Do you have kids that are in school? Do you have kids that are empty? Are you an empty nester? Are you now caretaking for your parents? Has life happened? Like, there are so many things that we take on as women in kind of our day-to-day life and working through a business that sometimes it's like time management feels like one of the biggest questions. How do I manage my time? And really for us women, I joke about this. I say, well, if you think about it, father time was designed for men and mother nature is what we cycle as women. So give yourself grace to find your ebb and flow in your season and know that your business can look a little different now, could look a little different in next year, could completely evolve in the year after that. I think you have to look at what's going on in your life and where your priorities are, and also where your energy is. If you're taking care of an infant, your energy is over there, right? You can definitely hire somebody to help and facilitate with that, and then you start looking at yourself. But please take care of yourself first, because that is the most important part. We are givers, ladies. We love to give. Coach is a giver. I don't know if you guys realize this. Between her coaching, her network, her, social media community she's building, all this stuff, she's a giver, right? And so at the same time of being a giver, we also are a receiver. We're designed to receive. So make sure you're open to receiving the rest you want, be open to receiving the income that you desire. And I use those words very specifically. Women, we love to hear the word receive because that's what we're designed to. And desire is our other key factor. So when we desire and we receive what we desire, we can become more in alignment of bringing what we want as creators into the world.
Wow, you are like a plethora of information. You know what? I'm looking at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we
We're
have not
almost
even
done.
covered half of it. So I have got to have you back because I know exactly what's going to happen. Everybody's going to listen to this podcast or they're going to watch it and the questions are just going to scroll. And I know I am going to have you back to answer them because I know what's going to happen. But in the meantime, please reach out to Katrina because I'm sure she could answer, faster than I can get her back on. So I highly recommend you do reach out to her as soon as possible because I know you're going to have a plethora of questions. I'm going to give you the last 5 minutes to kind of wrap up because I just want to sit and listen and hear what you have to offer and, just let you just bless the world with what you've got. So I'm going to let you go at it.
So, Coach, my last things for you is if you put this up on YouTube, I will gladly stalk you over there and answer all the questions from your following. So, feel free to drop it over. Once Coach lets me know, I will follow through, and then I'll be like, okay, let me come over here and come visit and say hi. The one thing I just want you to take away at the end of this, all of this conversation, is that what I'm sharing with you is still evolving. I talk with Coach about this all the time. I say, this is not me. This is a collaboration. I'm learning from every single one of those women, every single one of you that puts a comment down below, that joins me in coaching, that becomes part of my community. We are designing this together because it has never existed in the fabric of business. So while I've gotten the framework, I really love working with women to find their flow and what works for them because I'm learning in the process. And my gift is that not only do I get to teach you, but I'm hoping that you get to teach us to the next generation of women so that we start this role modeling of what business looks like, what life looks like as women that understand their bodies first, bring that creation into the world as a yin and yang for what the men are doing, and be able to communicate between both the men and the women around what it is we both desire. Because at the same end of the day, we want to help each other, we want to serve each other, we definitely want to make money, and we want to make the world a better place. So understanding yourself first, biggest piece, self-awareness, understanding what we experience as women, start testing it in your environment and see what comes up for you.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. And again, I definitely want you back. We're going to have to, you tell me when you're available. You look at your rhythm and your calendar, and I'll open up
Same
mine
time
for
next
you.
month. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like, and if you guys are interested, right before I jump off, if you guys are interested, I do have her Create Her Authentically downloadable book that if you want to just kind of start diving into this, it's a little cheeky. If you can't tell, it's gonna be a little cheeky. But I'll make sure that you guys have that information also. But it's a quick read, but it kind of goes through everything I've talked about and just it gives a little more detail on what I've just started to scratch the surface and what you're just hearing right now here today.
And how can people find you? Just go ahead and give a shout out with your website or how they can
Yeah.
reach out to
Best
you.
place to find us for if you want the PDF, it's on the website. It's at Truth Bomb Marketing. So Truth Bomb, because we're dropping truth bombs all over the place. .com. So you'll find us there. And if you guys can see my name here on the screen, it's Katrina Van Oudheusden. You can find me on LinkedIn and connect with me there. And I do have a big social media presence, but that's a lot of links to drop at this point.
So they can just look at your name too. And it'll be, again, it'll be in the podcast. Just click on her name. That'll take you to all of her links. And then also, if you are watching, it'll take the link down below. And then you can reach out to Katrina. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited. Thank you for being here with us. I learned a lot of things and that I did not know. And it makes a lot of sense because you always wonder, why do I feel this great this time? And other times I'm like, what's going on? But it makes sense. It makes complete sense. Now it's, you've got the information to go, well, yeah, okay. But grateful for you. I'm grateful for what you're doing. I love the fact that you're helping women and you are going in places that people are not willing to talk about and make it crystal clear why we're geniuses.
Now you know.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm looking forward to hearing your comments and your questions. And please, again, reach out to Katrina. I know she would love to hear from you. And until then, the most courageous thing you can do is be yourself. See ya.
This episode was brought to you by KeepOnSharing.com. They're calling themselves the first truly ethical social network. They'll share back 50% of their revenue with their users, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's free to register, and they never sell your information. You can list your products, events, and content for free. Adult content accounts, be gone. They're fun, positive, and encouraging sites supporting local business. In a day and age where social media sites, even well-established ones, are being brought to light left and right for their questionable and sometimes downright archaic business practices, KeepOnSharing.com is a well-needed breath of fresh air. While you can share personal content, news articles, or just about anything for fun and profit, the marketplace allows practically anyone to sell anything at any time from anywhere. But on this site, you are the boss. I cannot express how amazing it is that KeepOnSharing.com shares 50% of all revenue back with the users on top of having a truly transparent, supportive, and clean business model. Check them out. I'm signing up. Will you? Go ahead and meet me on there. Just go to KeepOnSharing.com. A link will be provided in this episode's description.